Here.
Gabriel,
Here.
Harrington,
Here.
O'Doherty,
Here.
Schmeckel,
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Oh, sorry, Schuster,
Here.
Somerville,
Here.
Pierce,
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. All council members are present. Let's go to public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment on items not coming before the council this evening. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the Vice Mayor for changes in the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 changes this evening. So our first change is that we are going to remove item 9J from the consent agenda. Apparently there needs to be some update on the language regarding the Homeland Security in a couple of sections, and we will be unable to submit the revisions before tonight's meeting. Our second change is that we're going to be adding item 10A to our regular agenda. It's an amendment between the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and the Wyoming Hospital Association for the provision of disbursement of federal funds to address staff retention per the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, to the regular agenda. And then our final change this evening is that we're moving item 9C from the consent agenda to item 14A.
Second.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Schuster. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Seeing none. Vice Mayor, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the agenda be set as changed. Second.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Somerville. As before, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. All right. Next up on our agenda, we have our section for proclamations, presentations, and notifications. We have 2 proclamations this evening that I am preparing to read. The first is for the Epilepsy Foundation. Whereas the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado and Wyoming is the leader in connecting, educating, and empowering to improve the lives of everyone affected by epilepsy, and whereas epilepsy is one of the most common neurological disorders while also remaining among the least understood of major chronic medical conditions, and we have the power to change this, 1 in 26 people will be diagnosed with epilepsy in their lifetime, and nearly 65,000 individuals in Colorado and Wyoming face the daily challenges and stigma surrounding epilepsy. Whereas we need your help to expand education throughout the state, raise the public profile of epilepsy in Colorado and Wyoming, and provide direct services to our highest needs population with uncontrolled seizures. Together we can end the stigma. And whereas epilepsy is a neurological condition characterized by recurrent unprovoked seizures, and whereas epilepsy and seizures affect over 3 million people across the United States, including nearly 65,000 children and adults in the states of Colorado and Wyoming diagnosed with recurring seizures. And whereas epilepsy is the 3rd most common neurological disorder among adults in the United States behind Alzheimer's disease and stroke, and whereas 10% of the American population will experience a seizure in their lifetime, 3% will develop epilepsy by age 75, and whereas epilepsy cannot currently be cured, though many of those diagnosed with epilepsy can control their seizures with modern medicine and surgical techniques. And whereas National Epilepsy Awareness Month is designed to increase the awareness of epilepsy and to encourage Americans to join the movement to end the stigma often associated with epilepsy. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Paul Weaver, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim November as Epilepsy Awareness Month in the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and call upon all citizens to join me in this special observance. To my understanding, we also have the executive director for the local branch of the Epilepsy Foundation with us to say a few words. Mr. Mark Homer. Mr. Homer, welcome. The floor is yours.
Mayor Weaver, and hang on one sec.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Weaver and council members. Nice seeing you all. Thank you for serving our community. Just to clarify, I'm the Wyoming director for the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado and Wyoming. And I really appreciate that you've read the proclamation tonight. We have a lot of programs and services to offer through the foundation. And I hope you'll check out our website, people of Laramie, and see what we have to offer. Just a heads up on the campus this month, on the 14th of November from noon to 1 in the East Ballroom of at the university. We're going to be having a seizure first aid training seminar that anyone can join with a complimentary lunch. You can sign up at our website for that, and that's a start, so we can help keep people in our community safe if they happen to be having a seizure. So once again, I hope you'll participate and check out our website. And again, thank you for raising awareness during National Epilepsy Awareness Month.
Mr. Homer, what's that website address?
It is epilepsycoloradowyoming.org.
I apologize for not getting your position title accurately.
Oh, that's not a problem. Thank you.
It's always something we want to do to help raise awareness around all these kinds of public health issues and events like this. And so we're really pleased to have you here to tell us a little bit more about it and to promote those activities. And of course, if you can't make it, right, to the campus activities, they can go to the website and keep track of what's going on and maybe make it to the next one and get more information there.
Absolutely. We continuously have trainings. You can get on-demand training, and there are, like, we have a support group you can join. We have a volunteer group, have classes and seminars. So lots to offer.
Really
So
appreciate it.
We're really looking forward to building the community of people with epilepsy in the state and those who care for them, so we can provide better support and see that people get the proper medical attention they need as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the information and the opportunity to help you spread some awareness about epilepsy in Wyoming. I think we have another guest with the organization, which is Miss Melissa Condon. And if you'd like to say a few words, Melissa, you're certainly welcome to. You're not on the spot and you don't have to, but since you've taken the time to be here, you have the opportunity. Hello. Oh, Melissa, we're having a hard time with the audio. We can't hear you. You might need to check and see if you've got that on your phone. We're terribly sorry. We can't hear you, Melissa. Well, if we can't figure it out.
I saw it change for just a second
Oh, okay.
on the screen.
All right. Yeah, sometimes you have to kind of move around on the screen there until you get the little icon for the microphone and then turn it on. It's different depending on your device. And we're certainly happy to take the time. It's no worry. Looks like you're still muted there, Melissa. We'll give you a minute to figure it out. We'll get it because we'd like to give you an opportunity to speak. Well, sometimes these things sometimes these things happen. Mr. Homer, can you just tell us a little bit about Melissa, since she's taking the time to be here while she's having that audio problem? Maybe we can just have you kind of fill us in.
Sure. Melissa has a young child who was diagnosed with epilepsy last year and suffers from seizures. And she's been receiving treatment through Children's Hospital in the Denver area. And since we've established a presence here in Wyoming, I began in March. She's been wonderful in helping to volunteer with the organization and doing some events and participating. She helped. She did a walk to end epilepsy here last spring, which was fantastic. So I'd just like to say I really appreciate Melissa and all that she's giving to the organization and in raising awareness for epilepsy in the state of Wyoming and in Laramie in particular.
Thank you for that, Mark. And Melissa, no worries about it. That's just how it goes sometimes with the technology. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate, Melissa, that you took some time to join us tonight. And we appreciate hearing a little bit more about the efforts. And it's good to put a face to families and individuals that are living with epilepsy in our community. I'm sure there are more than we know about. And I think it's important work that you're doing. And with that said, we just once again want to say thanks, and we're happy to do our little small part to help you raise awareness about your organization and the work you're doing. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks again, Mayor Weaver.
Thank you. All right. Council members, we have another proclamation this evening for Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Which I will read in just a moment here as we exercise a point of personal privilege for the other council member. Just a moment before we can hear everything clearly. This is a proclamation for the Alzheimer's Association. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is the 7th leading cause of death, affecting more than 10,000 Wyomingites, among 6.5 million Americans and more than 50 million people around the world. And whereas Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative brain disorder that tragically robs individuals of their memories and leads to progressive mental and physical impairments, for which there is currently no prevention or cure. And whereas this disease preys heavily on specific segments of our community, with Black Americans twice as likely as whites to develop the disease, Hispanics 50% more likely than whites, and women account for 2/3 of all people living with Alzheimer's. And whereas lack of awareness of Alzheimer's disease has resulted in only half of those affected ever being diagnosed, effectively denying countless people access to the Alzheimer's Association's free resources. And whereas the impact of Alzheimer's extends to loved ones of those with the disease, including 16,000 Wyoming family members and friends who provided an estimated 21 million hours of unpaid care in 2021 at a value of more than $376 million. And whereas the cost to our country in total payments for health care, long-term care, and hospice for people with Alzheimer's disease in 2021 was $321 billion. And whereas the city of Laramie recognizes the efforts of the Alzheimer's Association to raise funds and promote awareness to fight Alzheimer's disease and related disorders, thereby improving the quality of human life for those living with the disease and their care partners, and bringing us closer to finding a cure. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Paul Weaver, Mayor and President of the governing body of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim that November shall be recognized as National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month and National Caregiver Month. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Robin McIntyre for joining us this evening. Welcome. Please, if you have some words that you'd like to share with us, we'd like to hear them.
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your time here with the City Council. I'm Robin McIntyre, and I am the Development Manager for the Alzheimer's Association Wyoming chapter. We are here to lead the way in ending Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. A lot of people don't know that dementia is simply an umbrella term, and there's lots of different types of dementia. Alzheimer's just happens to be the most common form that we're facing. And as you heard in the statistics that the mayor read, the numbers are quite alarming, especially in our state alone, with 10,000 people currently living with the disease and possibly another 5,000 who could be undiagnosed. This proclamation is really important to me and my family and our community because if we don't find a cure, eventually this disease is going to affect us all, whether that be by someone that we know or a loved one of ours being affected by the disease, but then the cost of the disease as well. I myself participate in a clinical drug trial that is funded by the Alzheimer's Association. And right now is a very, very, very exciting time for us in Alzheimer's research. We just recently had a preventative medication have a top line result that indicated after 18 months of being on an anti-amyloid drug, it's a preventative drug, that cognitive decline was decreased by 27%. So if you could imagine losing 27% of your memory, that sounds quite terrifying. And the fact that we now have drugs that are biologically changing the disease is very exciting. We have 2 more top line results for 2 other drugs that are in the pipeline that should be read out at any time. And so we're feeling that we're just that much closer to the first survivor of this disease. This Alzheimer's disease is the only disease in the top 10 causes of death that cannot be stopped, slowed down, or that cannot be slowed down, stopped, or cured. So right now, we just are always looking for ways to educate the public, raise awareness, and let people know that it's going to take all of us doing our part to end this disease. I also wanted to just echo real quick what Mark said about his volunteers, and that we can't do it without those people who are kind of just selflessly putting themselves out there and doing what they can to not only support themselves, but other community members that are living with these illnesses and diseases.
Thank you very much, Ms. McIntyre. And I just want to make a quick statement, which is that sometimes I think these health conditions that people live with in our communities, they can sort of be abstractions. People realize that they exist out there, but the point of these awareness-raising proclamations and these kinds of conversations is so that people can get a look at those statistics, and perhaps that might help those folks understand just how close to home some of these conditions hit for people. I think that's probably one of the most important things about these sorts of proclamations and readings is it's another avenue to get that information, because I don't think people realize that. I also appreciate having this be a month of awareness and an awareness event for the caregivers. Like a lot of people, I've certainly had Alzheimer's touch my family and seen the effects that has on not just the person suffering with Alzheimer's, but of course their family, their spouse, their children, their grandchildren, and it's profound. And I think it's well worth bringing to light the numbers so that people maybe can have a better understanding and these can be less abstract. And I'm really glad you mentioned something that I heard about on the radio just today, which is promising results about a drug trial that are now moving into further clinical testing stages. And there is some hope there. And I think probably everyone is wishing and willing that better outcomes are ahead, and that science continues to prove out the way that we seem to think that it might be. And I saw that Councilmember O'Doherty would like to make a comment as well.
Oh, I was just wondering how Wyoming is for memory care units. There probably aren't enough spaces, are there, Ms. McIntyre?
That is another issue that we're facing. And that's why the statistics on the unpaid caregivers are so alarming. It's millions and millions of dollars of unpaid care because there aren't enough facilities or beds to take on those types of patients. And just like the mayor said, it really is a burden on family members and friends. And so through not only that's where we come in, and all of our services are free. We have a lot of education, we have support groups, and we're not only here just to educate the caregivers, but also law enforcement, healthcare providers, doctors, community members. We have information, you know, on how you can support the disease in all types of way. But certainly that is why the unpaid, or the amount of unpaid care is so high, is because there's just not enough facilities at this time.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking time to come here and really just allow us once again to do a small part to try to help raise awareness around this serious issue. But I do want to end on that note that there does seem to be some hopeful developments right now. And so we just continue to look forward to learning more about that. Thank you for taking time to be here with us tonight. Really
Thank you very much. It truly is a really exciting time. So keep your eyes and ears open, and just know that good things are coming. And we have kind of finally felt like we've made a breakthrough after decades and decades of failure, which they wouldn't consider it failure either. We've learned something along the way, but nothing quite like this has ever happened. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. And Robin, did you want to just tell us what the website is for people to contact, or so they can find that and find those resources one more time before we leave?
Absolutely. We are at alz.org.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Council, that'll take us now to the next part of the agenda under 6. And we have no public hearings this evening, but we may have announcements. I'm going to check with the city manager for any announcements we may have.
Hi, Council. Good evening. We do have 3 announcements. I'll let to the Assistant City Manager start, then Public Works Director, and then if you'll come back to me, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, it's with real pleasure that I announced that on November 4th at 10:30, we're going to be doing a ribbon cutting for the Fire Station 3 solar project. It'll be at Fire Station 3, of course, from 10 to 10:30. If anybody likes working with 4th graders, the 4th graders are going to come over and do a solar project from Linford and build some solar bugs, and then get a little bit of education on how solar energy works. And then at 10:30, we're going to cut the ribbons with representatives from the city, the Blue Sky, and Creative Energies there to answer any questions. Councilor Doherty has already committed to speaking engagement on behalf of the EAC and City Council. So we're super excited to be there. Encourage you to come out and see what's going on, and excited to get that project finished. I'll pass it over to Brooks Webb at this point.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Mr. Webb.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, City Council. The Wyoming Water Quality and Pollution Control Association was formed in 1970, 52 years ago. The association is made up of Wyoming water and wastewater operators. Each year at their conference, they offer a wide variety of technical training with the required continuing education hours needed for our operators to maintain their certifications and further develop their job skills. Every year, the association presents awards to outstanding water and wastewater operators across the state. And I'm very happy to say that this year, Laramie had a few award winners, and I'd like to tell you about them briefly. First, Scott Palm was awarded the Dr. Robert L. Chapman Award for exemplary service in the water treatment field. Scott's been with the city for 25 years and is highly skilled at managing groundwater production and disinfection, in addition to the management and operation of tanks, PRVs, multiple pressure zones, and associated pumps. Scott's a level 4 water treatment plant operator, and yesterday, Scott was promoted to the acting utility division superintendent. The second award was presented to Greg Bowman. Greg was awarded the Robert Moore Award for exemplary service in water distribution field. Greg's worked for the city for 12 years. He's a level 4 water operator And he's been instrumental in developing many of the water sampling plans that we have to meet EPA requirements. Scott and Greg are both very proficient in their fields of water treatment and distribution. They're always willing to help and train newer employees. In addition, each year the association puts on a backhoe rodeo. The annual backhoe rodeo competition tests the safety, skills, and proficiency of equipment operators through a series of obstacles and challenging tasks in which they are timed and judged for their performance. This year, the City of Laramie staff destroyed the competition. Ben Hiller took first place and Todd Krula took second place in the backhoe rodeo. Mayor, City Council, we've got some amazing water and wastewater professionals at the city. I just want to thank you for allowing me time to recognize a few of them tonight.
Well, we just want to thank them for outstanding work that's getting recognized, and appreciate that news. And I had no idea there was such a thing as a backhoe rodeo. I always learn things as a member of this council. Thank you, Mr. Webb. Appreciate hearing about those award winners. City Manager.
Thank you, Council. I just got to learn about those awards in real time with you. That is phenomenal. I'm so proud of our staff. That's awesome. And the backhoe rodeo, someday I'm going to get to spectate this event. Council, my announcement for you is I wanted to introduce you to the new Human Resources Director for the City of Laramie. Patty Russell is on the video conference with us this evening. I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself in terms of whatever she'd like to share. But I did want to just tout some of her professional qualifications. Patty started with us on September 28th. She has a full month under her belt now. In total, she has 30 years of experience in human resources, and about the last 13 she spent in the public sector. Patty told me when she started that education is a passion of hers, and it sure is. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Wyoming, a master's in business from Husson College in Maine, and also a Master of Jurisprudence in Employment Law from Tulane University. So we're so excited to have had her join our leadership team at the city. And with that, I just wanted to let her say whatever she'd like to and introduce herself to you.
So good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate you letting me join the organization as well as this meeting tonight. I do have a lot of HR experience. I fell in love with HR about 30 years ago and never looked back. I do like the education, but one of the reasons I got most of the education is because it's really needed in HR, especially the employment law piece. It's really needed. And I'm already challenging both Janine and Bob on at least a weekly basis with questions of things that we do and how we do it and why we do it. I'm really excited about being here.
Great. Patty, some of us have had the chance to kind of meet you a little bit already, but we're really glad to have you here, and thank you. And you know, HR is obviously one of those really important positions in the City of Laramie structure, so we're glad to have someone with your experience and interest in the job, and glad that it's not just the City Council challenging the City Manager and City Attorney on a regular basis about the way we do things and why we do them. So welcome aboard, and thank you for making a little bit of time to come to the meeting, introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
City Manager, do we have anything else before we move on?
No, Mayor, that concludes announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. I'm going to check with the City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to the public that next week, due to general elections on Tuesday, November 8th, our work session will be held on Wednesday, November 9th at 6 o'clock p.m.
Thank you very much for that announcement, City Clerk. Wednesday meeting next week for the work session. All right. Well, we follow along. The next item is disclosures by City Council members. Are there any council members that wish to make any disclosures about any of the items coming before us on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 8. I'd like to call on the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated. Second.
Motion and a second by Councilmember Schuster that time, I believe. City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Sorry, yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved, which brings us to the regular agenda. First item is item number 10A on the regular agenda. And I would like to call on Councilmember Schmeckel, who helpfully raised his hand to remind me that he had volunteered. Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you, Mayor. And for a little public edification here, this is a very short notice opportunity that we have here, which is why it was not on the agenda. So I move that council approve the acceptance of the disbursement of federal funds to Laramie Fire Department emergency medical providers to address staff retention per the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in the amount of $266,688 and authorize the fire chief to sign and amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second from Councilmember O'Doherty. Welcome, Chief Johnson, for a little background, I assume.
Yes. Honorable Mayor, members of council, first of all, thank you for letting me present this before you at such short notice. We have a short turnaround time on this. For a little background on this item, the state of Wyoming appropriated $5 million of ARPA funds for purpose of EMS stabilization in the state. The Wyoming Department of Health is managing funds for staff retention through an agreement with the Wyoming Hospital Association. They audited, we call it WATERS, but it's Wyoming Ambulance trip reports to see how many people we've had providing health care through emergency medical services in our community. And through their formula, they came up with an amount of $266,688 that we're eligible to receive based on the conditions of the letter that they sent. There were 7 conditions. The first being that we have to have a turnaround time and accept the indication of the money by November 15th. The other 6 conditions are the funds need to go to employees that were providing the care. The amounts need to be equally distributed. The payments are for the purposes of retention, and then we have to send a letter that addresses that, how it came about through the governor and the appropriation of the Wyoming legislature. We can't use any of the funds to pay the employer tax portion of it, which is $3,922. And then we have to submit a report to the state by December 31st of this year. Signing the document also attests that we'll still be basically in the ambulance service providing services after we do this. So that being said, we received notification actually this weekend that we were eligible for this. So I present to you, I'm looking for approval to move forward with this so like we can do the appropriate part, what we've been allotted and take care of that. So I stand for questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Chief Johnson on this opportunity? Comments? Probably just the standard comment that we're glad that this is something the department is able to take advantage of, and well worth walking it on to make sure that we meet the deadline. Why don't we see if there's a public comment on it? Seeing none. Back to the council for any final thoughts for the vote. Comments? City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. Chief, thank you very much. But that's coming your way for the department, folks.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 11. And I'm going to call on Councilmember Gabriel for the introduction of the item.
Thanks, Mayor. This is the title is award of bid of 3 hybrid pickup trucks. I would move to award the bid for the replacement of units 345, 351, 358 with 3 hybrid pickup trucks with trade-in to Ken Garth of Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the amount not to exceed $155,025, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
So motion and a second from Councilmember Schuster. Thank you. Mr. Webb, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Excuse me. The replacement of these 3 vehicles is for the utility division. We went out to bid. We opened bids on October 4th. We had 1 bidder. You see there, Ken Garth. Bids came in under budget. These vehicles were specified as hybrid vehicles. They're basically half-ton pickup trucks, Ford F-150s. They were specified as hybrid trucks to meet your goals, City Council goals, to continue efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's all I got. With that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions for Mr. Webb? Seems like it's part and parcel of the ongoing efforts, and we'd like to hear about all of it. Why don't we see if there's any public comment? Seeing none, council, last chance to share some thoughts about the pickup trucks, the 3 hybrid trucks. Seeing none, City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Cumby.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
That motion carries. Thank you. Up next is item number 12, Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. We are coming up on the holiday season, and this resolution gives our staff a little bit of thanks for the hard work that they do. I move to approve Resolution 2022-66, establishing December 23rd, 2022, and December 30th, 2022 as city observed holidays, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
That's second from Councilmember Harrington. Appreciate that. I'm going to call on HR Director Russell just to talk to us a little bit about this. Director Russell, it just kind of makes sense, I think, to the council to give these days on either side of that holiday break. But anything you have to add, we'd be eager to hear.
No, I think it's pretty awesome that the council is willing to look at this and approve this, and I think your employees will greatly appreciate it and be able to spend more time with their families over the holidays.
Thank you, Director Russell. I think, yeah, it just sort of makes sense. People want to do different things. Sometimes there's travel plans, sometimes there's airport trips and things like that. So it's always good to have those days. Councilmember Somerville, anything you'd like to add there?
Mayor, I actually have an amendment I'd like to propose to this.
Oh, okay.
When you feel it's appropriate. Okay.
Yep.
Mayor, I would move to, in addition to the days off, add a $500 per employee stipend with a total cost not to exceed $150,000 and amend the general fund budget.
Council, you've heard the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second by way of conversation.
Okay, the second from Councilmember Harrington so we can learn more. Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that it's important that we give the employees time off. I certainly wish that we could give them more time with their families, but given this year's economic outlook, our employees are certainly facing increased costs, and we're not going to be able to adjust those salaries. We are currently waiting on a salary survey to come back, and that'll be 4 to 6 months. So after some conversation with the city manager and our financial team, they thought that we would be able to afford a $500 per employee stipend. In addition to, again, just thank our employees and just give them a little bit of help while we're waiting to be able to adjust those salaries.
Councilmember Somerville, I think I speak on behalf of the council when I say I'm incredibly relieved that this isn't the first that the city manager has heard of this plan that nearly died for fail the second due to the surprise nature of it by the council. City Manager Jordan, would you like to talk to us a little bit more about this?
Mayor, I don't think so. I think Councilor Somerville covered it.
All right.
Have been aware of it, and we will balance this out. She's correct in that we have just issued the salary and compensation study request for proposal, as well as a staffing study component to that analysis, but it's many months out before we're able to adjust salaries, and we know that all of our employees are facing incredible inflation, as is everybody, and the adjustments are not forthcoming for some months. So I have no doubt that this is very much deserved by our staff, who have worked very, very hard over the last 6 months, as we've seen prices increase, to keep budgets and services within the budget allowed and still keep delivering them. So yeah, I think that we can work this out and balance it within this year or next year's budget.
Thank you. And that's, of course, what the council needs to hear, is that the budgetary impact here is something we believe we can manage while we wait for those salary comparisons and the future work done here. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I was just thinking there's some savings in council travel and, yeah, the travel budget. There should be, and we haven't gone to meetings for a few years.
Well, I'm going to trust the staff to find the best place to move the dollars around before we start offering the frankly meager city council budget that we may need for something else up, but I'm sure the city manager's on top of that. Councilmember Gabriel.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was just curious, what about part-time? I'm assuming this is for the full-time employees. Do part-time employees get half of that?
Is that a question for the city manager, Councilmember Gabriel?
Whoever can answer.
Whoever's got it, okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Somerville, hand up to answer.
Thank you, Mayor. So this motion only includes the full-time employees. I know in previous years we've had discussions about how to make that work. We have a lot of seasonal part-time employees that come through the city that aren't necessarily working for us right now. So my motion is just for the full-time employees. I'm not opposed to doing something for the part-time employees, but it seems to become difficult, but I'm all ears.
Any other discussion? Any other comments? So there's public comment on the item. Seeing none, we'll close public comment on the item. Council, last opportunity for thoughts or comments. Council, I think it's of course our wish to try to do things to communicate to the employees that they're valuable, and we appreciate all the work that they do, exceptional work that they do on a regular basis, and a couple of days off, and a small stipend to try to help with inflation pressures around the holidays is not much, but it is something that we can do, and of course we're happy to do it. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Cumby.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. Thank you, Council.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, was that the motion, the vote on the amendment?
That was the vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
now that you've reminded me. Now back to the main motion as amended. Further discussion, Councilmember Harrington, hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councilor Somerville for bringing this early enough for folks to plan travel and other time with family this year. I think it was wise to bring it this early on. So I just wanted to pass along a thank you to the councilor.
Yes, I think Councilmember Somerville deserves the lion's share of credit for this, having thought about it earlier in the year than we usually do, and having brought it up with the management folks and other council members and management team. Of course, we also, as a council, appreciate the work that you folks put in to try to figure out ways to do things like this for the city employees. They are important, and we're really happy to hear that there are a few things we can figure out here as we move towards the end of the year. Do we have any other comments or questions? We'll go quickly to public input on it as well. Okay. Public comments open. Go ahead and call on Linda Devine. Ms. Devine, welcome. You've got the floor.
Oh, I was actually trying to comment earlier on the amendment, which y'all already passed. So I think there was a delay in time on that, but I was just highly in support of the amendment for giving the $500 stipend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And better late than never. And it's still timely. So we appreciate that comment.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter, right? How much input I have, because y'all did it the way that I wanted you to.
Yeah, I think it's good for city employees to hear that members of the public are okay with them receiving these additional days and small financial things we can do for them too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was worth it to go back to public comment. We had one, but seeing no other public comment on the item, we will close public comment. Council, I'll give you another chance to say anything you might want to before we go to the roll call vote, if there is anything. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on the main motion?
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
And that motion carries. Thank you, City Clerk and Council. That takes us to our next item on the agenda. Item number 13, Councilmember O'Doherty, please.
I move to approve original ordinance 2041, amending Laramie Municipal Code, Chapter 10.32, bicycles to update language to reflect current device uses on third and final reading and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pearson. We have Assistant City Manager Feaser here for the background on this third reading of the item.
Yeah. Honorable Mayor, City Council, we do have an amendment that we'd requested, and if we could get an amendment, we could maybe speak to that first.
Yeah, that seems like a good way to move forward in the process. Councilmember O'Doherty, do you have an amendment forthcoming?
Yes, I move to amend original ordinance 2041A, sections 10.32.020 and 10.32.100 and add sections 10.32.160 parking and 10.32.170 dismounting in crosswalks required as stated in the cover sheet. And then should I read what these are?
Doesn't look like it yet, Councilmember O'Doherty. Looks like Assistant City Manager might like to give us a little background on the purpose of the amendments, but let's see if there's a second, of course. Someone.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilmember Schuster. And thank you, Councilmember O'Doherty. Assistant City Manager Feaser, talk to us a little bit about the proposed amendments.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, thanks. And we were trying to make the amendment language more difficult for Councilor O'Doherty than we needed to. So we used the as stated in the cover sheet to try to cover what we were doing to get you there. After we got done with Traffic Commission and second reading, engineering, one of the engineers, Zeb Coulter, took some time and was comparing the ordinance to state statute, which I thought we had already kind of done, but we had missed a few things and just figured that there were a couple things that we probably needed to clear up. Under 1032.020 regulations, it stated that, I'm going to skip over to it so that I read. It had stated that it's unlawful for the parent of any child under 10 years of age or guardian of any ward to knowingly permit any such child or ward to violate any of the provisions of this chapter. And state statute doesn't have an age restriction on that. And I think we all understand children to be under 18 years of age, and I believe unless they're emancipated. So that was a requested change just to keep us in line with state statute, which we thought was fair. Under 1032.100 carrying of articles, we have the electric, we had included in our language the electric personal assistive mobility devices. And those are 1- and 2-wheel balancing devices like hoverboards. And I'm not sure how many people have seen the young man that rides that powered unicycle around. Well, he doesn't have handlebars that he needs to grip on, but I also necessarily don't want him carrying a huge package that he can't see around. And so we figured we better change that from handlebars to just safely operating the device. The last two additions were additions that were discussed with Traffic Commission and I missed it. So the first one was discussed with Traffic Commission. I just forgot to include it, was about parking and encouraging people to park their devices correctly so they avoid annoyance and danger of accident during their absence from the device, which I think is important. And then the final one was dismounting and crosswalks required. And it does say required, but required by official traffic control devices or ordinances. You know, if you're using a device and crossing a crosswalk and other people around, it might be safe to dismount, and you probably should dismount in all crosswalks. I know they do it around schools and such. I do notice that a lot of people don't necessarily dismount at that hawk signal across Grand Avenue. It is a big road. It's hard to get across, so there's some speed there. But that was kind of our attempt to get some information in there so that we could have some reasoning for people to hopefully dismount for safety purposes. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember O'Doherty, did you have anything else there? Okay, Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. Assistant Manager Feaser, I just have one quick question on the crosswalks. So I think it's good to have that information for education purposes, but I do see a lot of bikes that don't necessarily dismount. Are we looking to cite people for this if they're not dismounting in the crosswalks, or just having it in there for educational purposes?
In my mind, a lot of this comes, the police will remind people probably that they're supposed to dismount in the crosswalks. I don't imagine we'll see any citations, but I think where this comes to play is if there's an accident in the crosswalk that the police are involved in, and it was because somebody was riding their bike through the crosswalk, it gives some clarity for ticketing or how to deal with that accident in the crosswalk is more how I believe it to be handled.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking of the dismount zones that are all over the University of Wyoming campus that aren't necessarily obeyed all the time, but it seems to be more of an education push. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you very much. Exactly what he said. When you're on a bicycle, you're not a pedestrian. So if you ride your bicycle through a crosswalk, you are not a pedestrian. You don't have those rights. But if you remove yourself from the bike and walk the bicycle through the crosswalk, you are a pedestrian. And it's very clearly stated in the law, and a lot of people ride right out in front of people and yell at them and stuff like that. I've seen it happen at the university, especially because they consider themselves a pedestrian when they want to and a bicycle operator when they want to share the street. So I agree with the statements that were just made. It's quite a discussion sometime. I've seen some people in some arguments. I'm going to steer away from this. I'm going to go the other direction. But it is clearly stated in the law. If you're on the bike, you're a bicyclist. If you're walking it, you're a pedestrian. Two different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schuster. Yes, it appears there's some reasoning behind some of the rules there. Any other questions or comments on this? and on these final amendments. Well, why don't we see if there's any public input on the amendments? I'm going to call on, I'll go in order. I'm going to call on Ms. Linda Devine first. Let's let Ms. Devine into the meeting. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a concern about law enforcement being able to give them a warning, because if it's not an ordinance that can result in a misdemeanor, then I don't know that law enforcement then should have the ability to approach and issue a warning to them. And it makes me a little bit nervous, because it's another opportunity for law enforcement at their own discretion to go and detain someone. So I do have some concerns about that. And thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Ms. Nancy Sindler. Ms. Sindler, why don't you go ahead, please?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. I had questions about enforcement, in that there are, I don't know where in city council ordinances, in all of them, they have the rules that say if someone is stopped for something, what are the penalties? What are, I mean, we say you can't do this, you have to do that, but where does it say where the penalties are? Particularly, I've also, I appreciate the bit about the parking, because if there's some way they can put a penalty on people who regularly mispark their birds, because I find those seems to be the worst parking issues we have, and that they block sidewalks, they block streets, alleys. I had one in my alley for a week before they came and got it. But also, I want to know when we are going to start working on improving our infrastructure for non-car people, because I think we can save a lot of energy that way too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sindler. I don't see any other public comment for the time being. Any other discussion on the amendments? Seeing no further discussion, I guess I have a question. Assistant City Manager, the details of this code don't ever seem to end, but I wonder, for the sake of the inquiries that we've heard, if you might address some of those issues around discretion versus penalties outlined, and touch on that again for us, if you wouldn't mind, or if we'd like to perhaps pull someone else from staff into the discussion. That's your discretion.
Honorable Mayor, I don't believe I've got anybody else with staff here. So the discretion, as far as Ms. Devine brought up, is that it's in code so that we could ticket for that. Do I envision us giving out a lot of tickets for this? I do not. As far as the fines, I think they're covered in a different section, and I was trying to look that up real quick.
As you're doing that, Assistant City Manager, I think you really touched on the main part of the question we heard earlier, is that it is a ticketable offense within the ordinance, and then you're going to tell us where in the code the penalties are referenced. And I do know the city attorney is here with us, but we're going to see if you can't get to it first for us.
And it's, oops, let me. And Bob, if you're there, I thought it was under a different section of code, like at the very beginning of chapter 10.
I'm here. I was enjoying watching you do that, though. Laramie Municipal Code has a general catch-all penalty provision of up to $750 per day for any violation of the code. So that's the catch-all penalty provision. Many, and I I don't know if this is covered. Many offenses arising under the code, the penalty is generally established by the Supreme Court bond schedule. You know, why there might be a particular standard fine for, you know, drunk and disorderly, let's say. Those are generally covered by Supreme Court bond schedules. Holly's not here. She's more familiar with these things than I am. But yes, we have a catch-all penalty provision in the code. Obviously, most things are not $750 each occurrence or anything close to it. The judge has the discretion depending on the offense.
So, City Council, I was able to find it. Thank you, Bob, for stalling for me. 10-12-010 talks about the violation or the penalty for the that chapter, and it basically directs you, says, I'll go ahead and read it. Any person violating any of the provisions of this title or any rule or regulation of the official traffic commission approved by the city council, or any person acting contrary to the direction or admonition of any officer directing traffic, or any sign, marker, barrier, or signal erected or placed pursuant to this title or other city ordinance or rule or direction of the official traffic commission, shall upon conviction be punishable as provided in chapter 1.28, which Bob was referring to. And that's the amount for violations, which I believe is less, $750 or less. So.
And then further outlined, I think we understood from the city attorney's explanation, by a bond schedule determined to the Supreme Court. City Attorney, Assistant City Manager, I think that was a reasonable and well-intended question, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time trying to address those points just to make sure that we were clear. If we're going to change ordinance and it's going to include penalties, then I think it's probably pretty important for us to make sure that that's as clear as we can make it. So I appreciate the extra time to answer those questions. Any other questions or comments on the amended motion? Okay, City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
So Mayor, just to be clear, this is the roll call on the amendments.
We haven't passed the amendment yet?
Not yet.
Time flies. Roll call vote on the amendment.
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Okay, that motion carries. The amendment has passed. Back to the amended motion. Any other questions or comments? See if there's any public comment on the amendment, on the final motion before we go to the roll call vote. Seeing none, go back to Councilmember Schuster.
Yeah, I held my hand up, but I didn't get seen, so I had to go with the little hand on the screen. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I love the amendment. Now I just want to get permission. Anytime you find a bird scooter blocking a sidewalk or a street, that it can be impounded and they can pay to get them back. Maybe it'll make them work a little harder to make sure the rules are followed.
Comment from Councilmember Schuster. Other comments? Assistant City Manager Feaser, is the council safe in assuming that you hear our frequent input about our alternative transportation devices and that you make a great effort to continue to communicate that to our partners? I know you do, but probably it won't go away until some of those things get handled. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much. City Clerk, at the risk of being wrong yet again, but I don't think I am, how about we have a roll call vote on the amended motion?
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes,
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
that motion carries. Thank you, City Clerk. Thank you, Council. And I'm going to say that I wonder if the Assistant City Manager is going to miss this, since it's only been about 6 months that he's been bringing forward changes to the traffic code for alternative transportation. It's been a haul, but that's all right. We want to take time to make sure we get the input and the information. It has been an unusually long time, but it's an unusual topic. And as these things change, I think this we've talked about how I might have to update it again depending on how people are getting around. But just wanted to give you a quick shout out on how long you've had to work on this, Assistant City Manager, and we thank you. Because it was all about making sure that we went through the process with the Traffic Commission, public input, Laramie Bike Net, and all those folks, and we appreciate their work on it as well. All right, that takes us now to item number 14A, which I believe is Councilmember Somerville. Oh,
Have we done 14 yet?
Oh, is it 14? Yeah, item number 14. I'm all over the place tonight. Councilmember Cumby, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve on first reading original ordinance number 2052, amending Laramie Municipal Code 9.24, conform to state law and prohibit sales of nicotine products, including tobacco, tobacco products, and electronic cigarettes, to persons under the age of 21 years.
Second.
Motion and a second from the Vice Mayor, and I see the City Attorney has joined us for some background on this. City Attorney.
Mayor and Council, it's precisely as Councilor Cumby just described it. The state statute was changed in 2020 to make the sale, possession, use, furnishing, etc. of tobacco products in any form illegal to persons under 21. Our code continued to say under 18. And so that left our police department in a little bit of a pickle as to what to enforce and what court to enforce it in. So we have amended the code as you see to bring it in conformance with state statute. When you look at the ordinance as amended, all of the changed language that is highlighted is straight from state statute. And so now we would be, if this passes, completely in conformance with the state statute.
Thank you. Questions? Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you very much. Now with this statement of we cannot sell it to anyone under the age of 21, if someone under the age of 21 is using it, can they be ticketed?
Yes, they can. You'll look down at subsection 0.050D. It's unlawful for any person under the age of 21 to possess or use any nicotine products within the city limits.
Thank you very much. I am happy to see this.
Other questions? Any comments? I have a brief comment. I suspect that one among several reasons for this change was the continuing struggle with vaping devices in some of the high school settings across the state of Wyoming, and this is probably more than appropriate to try to deal with this and get that handled. Of course, those devices were never okayed to be in there, but probably the less tobacco and tobacco product availability to people under the ages of 21, the less it shows up in your high schools, and maybe the less it gets picked up by 18-year-old, 19-year-old people using them. Seems like an okay, better than okay, seems like a good move. Why don't we see if there's any public comment? Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and call on Linda Devine. Ms. Devine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I certainly don't mean to be a thorn in your side today. Here's my issue with changing the ordinance. Because it's as it is right now, it has to be written into circuit court because it's a state statute. In circuit court, they have different programs that can keep someone from getting convicted of a misdemeanor. They have adult diversion. They have like an awareness program that you take and then the charge will be dismissed against you. And if it's for those under 18, then they're normally handled through juvenile court. So, you know, the city attorney's talking about law enforcement isn't sure where to write the citation. It should be written into circuit court. And that's my concern with having it now being in the municipal code, because now you're going to have a lot of people between the age of 18 and 21 that will get a ticket. They appear in front of municipal court. There's no type of a diversion program. And so they end up getting a misdemeanor conviction on the record. And it's frustrating to me as a defense attorney that you hope when someone calls you that the ticket might be in circuit court because there's more options. And it's not like they're just letting them get away with something. They'll have them do some kind of an awareness program, alcohol and tobacco, you know, different things. And so perhaps if, you know, if the city passes this ordinance, which it sounds like you probably will, then maybe the city should also consider implementing some type of an ordinance to allow for adult diversion or something. And this isn't a criticism either of the city attorney, because she can only do what she's allowed to do by law. And so I would urge y'all, if you are going to pass it, then to consider implementing some kind of an ordinance where someone can take an aware program, some type of an education program, so they don't end up getting a misdemeanor conviction on the record. And thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. And we usually don't comment on public comment, but it's certainly not being a thorn in the side. It's appropriate to make comments on issues of concern, particularly when you have some expertise. So thank you for taking time. I've got some hands up. I'm going to go to Councilmember Cumby, and then I'll go to Councilmember O'Doherty, and then we'll go on from there. Councilmember Cumby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to concur with the comments from Linda Devine. And oftentimes the purpose of diversion programs is one major purpose is education and to help guide someone about the health issues related to different substances and things. So I concur with her comments and think that if we could implement a diversion program, it would be helpful and a more holistic approach rather than just the punishment of a citation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Doherty.
Yeah, I always find it ironic that we tell people that they're adults at 18, but then that you can be charged with possession of something because you're too young, between 18 and 21. So I am uncomfortable. Do we even need a city ordinance since it's already in state law? Thank you.
That's a question, I think, a comment and a question. Would you like an answer to that? I think the city attorney can probably provide one. Is the ordinance necessary, city attorney?
If I didn't think it was, it wouldn't be before you.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't think that we can have an ordinance on our books that is different than state statute. That And that's just sort of not realistic. Now, I don't have any problem with the public comment we just heard, which is you look at some other ways to deal with misdemeanors like this. But misdemeanors like this are common. I mean, it's throughout municipal court and throughout circuit court. And I take Councilor Doherty's point very seriously, which is often there are misdemeanors that involve things you can do when you're 21 years and a day old and things you can't do when you're 19. So that, that is a world we navigate constantly. So I don't know that that's what I have to say about that. And I think if we, on second reading, if it gets that far, I'll make sure that our city prosecutor is here and she can react to some of these ideas about the diversion or different way to handle these matters.
Mr. Mayor, can I clarify what my question was?
Just a second, Councilmember O'Doherty, and I also want to provide some information to the council. Is the city attorney and members of this council have discussed this concept of alternative programs, and the city council is fortunate in that our city attorney is well versed in that, given some other things that he does in his work as a legal professional. And this topic has come up before, and maybe this is a opportunity for us to begin to look at that more seriously in terms of how we want that to operate in the city court. And I just wanted to provide the city attorney that assist. This is not the first time this has come up. It just takes staff time to put that stuff in place, but perhaps this is a catalyst. Thank you for your patience, Councilmember O'Doherty. I'll let you go ahead with your line of questioning.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. It's just like if there's a law that says you can't kill people, that's a state law, do we need to repeat the law in Laramie? That's what I was trying to figure out. I thought that this was just to fix a law that isn't in compliance because of the age, but then it occurs to me, do we need a repetitive law if it's already on the state books? That's what I don't understand. And my business about the age is that the person is being treated like they are not an adult, but the penalty is an adult penalty. So yeah, that doesn't sit well with me, but we could talk about some different penalties later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Doherty. And again, I appreciate your patience. I think we as the council really just have to focus on what we have jurisdiction over as the city council. And unfortunately, there's a lot of laws like this. I think the cities in some ways are required to have these mirror ordinances. Can you answer that question for me, the city attorney?
Not, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think required, but going back to Councilor O'Doherty's point, which I do understand. Here's what happens sort of practically with the let's say the possession and use of tobacco. If a police officer goes into a situation, often there are situations with several different citations being issued. And we find it more efficient and better for our police force that all those citations that are issued, you go to a party, people are drinking, people are smoking, people are doing X, Y, and Z, that all those citations go into one court. Your point about murder, and I get you were trying to make a point rather than talk about murder. But if we had state law says murder is illegal, and if our ordinances said it wasn't, I feel that that's not a position we can be in for any sort of efficient law enforcement operation. But I get your point. So let's I think on second reading, if it gets that far, we can talk about some of the penalties and how we handle those in these situations. So fair point, Counselor, absolutely.
Thank you. Some discussion bubbling up around this topic as it kind of relates to wider issues. Let's try to focus as much as we can on just the issue before us. Councilmember Harrington, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, of course, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So much to the point you just made. I was just going to encourage the council to focus in on this specific issue of whether or not, I think the question before us is whether or not we will conform to state statute. Obviously, there are practical and political consequences from not conforming, but I think the points of the other council members, as well as the public comment are, I certainly take those well. And I think maybe, Mr. Mayor, this may be a conversation that we would want to have in a larger sense about substance abuse diversion, and maybe alternative sort of alternative paths for that to take. I would hate for us to tie it directly to the use of tobacco or e-cigarettes or whatever the case may be. I think it needs to be a bigger conversation, and I think maybe removed from this specific ordinance. To me, it makes sense for us to conform. So I will certainly be supporting this. I think it makes sense to conform, but I also think the other side of this conversation is true. And I think when we get to item 16, I think it would be something worth the council bringing up at that point for maybe a work session on this topic. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. Further discussion. Thank you, council members, for your interest in this topic. I'd like to suggest again that we use this as a catalyst for generating interest in some of the possibility Councilmember Harrington mentioned, and then focus on that in the future. But for now, sort of do the housekeeping that we need to do. Any other questions or comments? Thank you all. Let's go to the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
That motion carried. Thank you. All right. Trying to follow the agenda as I've been struggling to all evening. I believe we're now on item 14A, council members.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to acknowledge receipt of the August 11th, 2022 Traffic Safety Commission amendments and place them on file for public inspection.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Schuster, I think. It's very close. Councilmember Somerville?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the council's patience in pulling this off the consent agenda. The reason was I've certainly received a number of calls regarding the parking on Cherrywood Loop out there, and I think there are some different opinions between the people that have property out there and the developers that develop that area. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I'd like to make an amendment to this, which is to move to direct city staff to bring information regarding parking on Cherrywood Loop Lane to the city council in a work session.
Councilmember O'Doherty? Actually, this requires a second before any discussion. For a second.
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Schuster. Councilmember O'Doherty?
Yeah, all the Traffic Safety Commission does is listen to the story and move on. So there were no votes about this item, so I think it could just be a work session topic in that section.
Yeah, I'm not even.
Because the minutes
Right.
are the minutes. Thank you.
Right. I'm not even sure procedurally how this works other than on work session schedule. Council members.
Point of information, City Clerk, I'm having problems hearing the mayor. Is it just my connection?
No, I think it's his connection.
Okay. I'm going to assume that he wanted me to explain procedure, but
Yeah, I think that's where he was going. He was just questioning whether this is the appropriate spot for bringing up the work session or whether we should do that in the future council work sessions.
so I would answer. Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. I had a brief conversation with the city manager about how to move that forward. And in our discussion, it seemed like this was an appropriate venue just to direct staff to bring us information. She said that she thought we had a couple of spots on work sessions coming up where they could just bring us some information on the discussion that's occurred.
Thank you. Makes sense. We're going. Any other discussion on this, or you want to hold it maybe until we get to item number 16? All right. So do we, city clerk, help me? We need a vote now on this acceptance of the traffic commission minutes.
Since it was brought on the agenda as a regular item, we do need to vote on the main motion, but we also need to decide if this is germane to the topic, then we do need to vote on the amendment first.
All right, Councilmember Somerville, do you want to have a vote, or do you want to pull that amendment and bring it up for item number 16? I'll leave that up to you, I guess.
Mayor, I'm happy to bring it up under item number 16. Whatever procedure you're comfortable with, is fine with me.
Withdraw that.
Yep, I would withdraw.
Yeah, I think it sounds like what. All right, the second concur.
Second will concur.
Councilmember Schuster does the second concur. Right. Thank you, Council. Well, I understand what we were trying to do there, but I think we figured it out. So. All right.
So, Mayor, if we could have a motion on the, or a roll call on the main motion.
Right. I was waiting for the internet connection to catch up. Looks like it's choppy. Go ahead, City Clerk, with roll call on the motion.
Cumbie.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 no's, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 15, public comments on non-agenda items. Public comments on non-agenda items are open. Okay, seeing none, we'll close those and move on to item number 16, future work session topics. I think a couple have come up, and I can't remember what the other one was. So, council. Council member Harrington, and I'll go to Councilmember Somerville. Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd request a work session on maybe options and information regarding a diversion style program in municipal court for substance abuse, and would also encourage the city attorney to take some leeway if that, maybe not those specific instances, if that does not make sense, but I would like his opinion of that. So if it's not, specific to municipal court, I don't know those intricacies, so I would ask him to feel free with a little leeway there.
Right, to explore some alternative sentencing models for offenses in municipal court. Is there sufficient support for that across the council? It does appear so. All right, Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have two requests now. The first one is related to bringing just information forward regarding the Cherrywood Loop. I will get that right eventually. Parking to the city council in a work session.
All right. Is there sufficient support for that around the council? It does appear to be the case. All right. And what was the other topic?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add a request for a work session regarding the annexation of the Curtis Street Bridge, the I-80 intersection, prior to bridge construction, to annex that into the city of Laramie. It's a topic we considered a number of years ago. There's just some weird outlying parcels around here that cross the bridge, and it's a little strange. And in addition to that, I'd like to look at some potential enhancements for the Curtis Street Bridge in working with YDOT.
I think I saw heads nodding. And yep. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Somerville. So that's how it goes. When it rains, it pours. Let's move now to upcoming meetings. The city clerk at the top of the meeting did make an announcement and mentioned for a reminder that the next city council meeting will be on the Wednesday, the 9th, and rather than Tuesday, the 8th. And then I do believe city clerk can help me with scheduling. I think we've also scheduled a Wednesday meeting for the week after that.
That's correct, Mayor. On your consent agenda under scheduled meetings, you did reschedule the 15th to the 16th to allow council members to participate in the governor's forum on the 15th.
Excellent. Excellent. And we wanted to make sure that was the case. Yeah, Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious, on our work session list, we have the topic of bicycle boulevards tentatively scheduled for September, October. But I don't see that. Obviously, it's no longer the case, which is fairly typical for our schedules. I am curious, though, if that has come back. I don't see it on our work session list for upcoming meetings, and I'm curious if we could get that scheduled. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. Yes, revival of that topic. So just, I think, a request to keep it on the schedule. City Manager, did you want to weigh in on that a little bit? Oh, we've lost your audio, City Manager. I'm sorry.
This better.
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good. Sorry. I did have a question for the folks who had requested that work session. You're correct, Councilor Harrington. We should place that back on there. I think staff needs some additional dialogue with the folks who are interested in this topic. So if you all could reach out to me in the next, say, week or so, that would be really great. We were struggling a little bit with the content of the work session and the intent of council. So your guidance would be appreciated. Thanks.
You hear that, council? Our usual vagaries have caused the staff problems yet again. So a little more specificity to the request might help that take shape. Makes sense to me.
It's been raised by Traffic Safety Commission, and so folks there should know what was discussed. And also the bike net folks.
And the liaison to the Traffic Commission at this time is, I don't remember. Is it you, Councilmember Doherty? Can you help the staff help that take a little bit more shape moving forward? I know you can. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. And appreciate you providing that background for us as well. Councilmember Harrington.
Mr. Mayor, I had, I guess I would just say that I will reach out to the city manager to clarify sort of my hopes for this. After talking with Councilor O'Doherty, I will do that.
Sounds good, folks. Makes sense. It's all right. It's still there. We just haven't had time given the scheduling. Any other thoughts about upcoming meetings or future? Yes, Councilmember Gabriel, I saw your hand.
Before we adjourn into another session, I just thought it would be appropriate to wish a former council member a happy birthday tomorrow. Dr. Jerry Meyer is going to be celebrating his 103rd birthday. Saw him in the store the other day, still going strong.
That guy is amazing. Councilmember Gabriel, thank you for that announcement. Jerry Meyer, 103 years old. What is the secret? Councilmember Schuster.
I'd like to know how many senior Olympic gold medals he has won, because he has been phenomenal in participation in that.
That's something else. Thanks for that, Councilmember Gabriel. Wow. City Manager, I saw you. Oh, yeah, she just wanted to be seen and amazed at that birthday as well. Yeah. All right. Okay, Council, thank you for your thoughtful suggestions around work sessions and upcoming meetings. It never stops. There's a lot to do. There will be a lot to do moving forward. I think now we'd best move on to item number 17. I'll call, City Clerk.
Sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to point to let you all know that in conversations with the city manager this week, we've been discussing the meet and greet with the legislative representatives. That may be postponed just due to planning and timing of all of everything that's happening. So there has been some discussion of maybe trying to incorporate that into the WHAM convention this winter in January. So I just kind of wanted to update you on that a little bit.
That makes sense, City Clerk, and I appreciate the update. Yeah, it starts to get unbelievably hard to get everybody scheduled as we move further and further into the end of the year, and that has frequently been a challenge, and you know that better than everyone else with the council schedules, legislator schedules, and I think there's also an interest at this point in making sure the commissioners can be included in that. If I'm not wrong, I think there was some thought around trying to make that an efficient meeting with getting everybody together. So appreciate the update, and that makes sense. City Clerk, we give her a lot of little scheduling tasks that become giant and hard to deal with. Thank you, City Clerk. Councilmember Schuster, can I call on you for item number 17?
Thank you very much. I move the council adjourn to executive session regarding personnel, Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405, small letter A, Roman numeral 10, and litigation, Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405, small letter A, Roman numeral 3.
Second.
A second from Councilmember Schuster. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Council, 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right. We are adjourned.